Welcome back to another edition of Should We Care? And today on Should We Care, being that the Canadian Thanksgiving has just passed, I want to take a look at things we should be thankful for, or maybe not. Since I'm focused on Thanksgiving right now, and I don't think Thanksgiving would have been all that great for these families, but the first little thing I want to touch on is there was a news story recently, just in the last couple of days, and it was a 57-year-old gentleman somewhere around Elmer, Ontario, who was out for an evening bicycle ride. When he came across the store was closed, but there was an outdoor pumpkin display, and there was two individuals trying to steal a $3 pumpkin. One of them was a teenager, so we'll never know his name. But the cyclist stopped and did what I consider the right thing, and many of the press stories I've read back that up, felt he was doing the right thing as well. Suggested they just put the pumpkin back and forget about it. What did they do? They turned around and beat the crap out of him so badly that the gentleman died in hospital. You know, happy Thanksgiving. And then there was the story this weekend from the Lower Mainland in BC, the Greater Vancouver area, of a young fellow, an 18-year-old, Jamie Kehoe, just starting his life, 18 years old, on a bus on his way home in the evening. A fight broke out between two women on the bus. This young man, who from all reports was a very fine young guy, everybody speaks highly of him, he didn't know these people, but decided to be a good Samaritan, which is the term used to describe him in the newspaper, and get in to break these two women up from fighting. This resulted in him being stabbed in stabbed in the neck and bleeding to death. He later, as I said, later died in the hospital 2 days before Thanksgiving. You know, I don't know if Thanksgiving will ever be the same for the Kehoe family, and I don't blame them. And for those of you that may be seeing this today fresh, there will be a vigil for Jamie tonight in Surrey at 7 p.m. Just check the Surrey News and you'll find it, because, again, here's a needless death perpetrated by individuals that believe they could get away with whatever they wanted. That seems to be happening a lot in Canada these days, which is why I'm doing this. So to the Kehoes, my sympathies, and I hope your Thanksgivings get better. And then, of course, we had the case of Mitchell Wilson. I've already done a little video for Mitchell, but again, it seems to have dropped off the map pretty quickly. This was the little 11-year-old disabled child out for a walk on using his walker. Was bullied by a couple of kids that thought his iPhone was more important than his dignity. By all reports, a very pleasant, smiley child. I haven't seen a picture of him yet in the news where he wasn't smiling, but he was in such pain, psychic pain, that he went to bed, took his clothes out for the morning, but went to bed, tied a plastic bag around his head, and his parents found him in the morning dead. A result of bullying. And, you know, these were younger kids bullying, but our role models in Ottawa seem to make bullying an art form, and so why shouldn't these kids bully? That's what they're learning from. And parents, because it doesn't affect your life immediately, these the bullying attitudes we see in Ottawa, you're not acting as a very good buffer for your children. So to the Wilsons, my condolences, and hopefully Thanksgivings will get better for you too. So now that I've mentioned those three tragedies and the relationship to Thanksgiving, Let's look at a couple of instances of democratic bullying, because we're seeing that with great frequency as well. Just last week, now we have a federal government here under Prime Minister Harper that snuck a majority in May, running on a platform, same platform they've been running on for a number of years, on open, transparent government. A more, doing things so that Canadians know what's going on. Last Thursday, they moved all public account committees behind closed doors. Public account committees are ones that were like oversight committees. So the public does have a way of finding out what's being done with our tax dollars by checking out the minutes of public accounts committees. All you have to do is check out one of Katie O'Malley's blogs on CBC, and she follows these. But last week, they decided to move these committees behind closed doors, in camera, so nothing's public. That's not really transparent, but, judge for yourself. But among other things, some of the things these behind closed doors meetings will do is, now, we'll never really know why Tony Clemens was able to spend $50 million in his home riding with absolutely no government oversight. We'll never really know why a gag order was slapped on the integrity commissioner. She was paid $500,000 and let go following a disagreement with Sheila Fraser. These are just a few of the things, and I mean those are our tax dollars we're talking about. But this transparent, open government has now shut these things down, moved them behind closed doors. That's not transparency. So there's another form of bullying, and it's happening in Ottawa. Another one of Prime Minister Harper's election campaign promises was based around accountable government. He took a great deal of effort to point out the amount of patronage and so forth that had gone on with the Liberals, and I'm not denying that it didn't happen, because it did. The Liberals had the decency to set up an inquiry into the ad scam issue. I mean, they had the balls to look at what was going to have an external body look at what went on. There wasn't one politician charged in that. There was a number of bureaucrats that were, but there wasn't one politician. So, yeah, there was patronage going on, and it wasn't overly accountable. Prime Minister Harper's promise for accountability, I think, is best exhibited this past week when he appointed two failed Conservative candidates, two gentlemen that ran in the May election for the Conservative Party, Cecil Clark in the Maritimes, Solly Jadal in Montreal, and Mr. Harper has appointed both of them as consultants, a 3-year consultancy, right in time for the next election, where they can work in their own riding, listening to the people and explaining what the government is doing. At $135,000 a year, plus whatever. Now, why do we elect MPs? My understanding of democracy in this country is that's why we have MPs, is to listen to the people in their riding and make them aware of what's available through the government. You don't turn around and pay for 3 years of electoral campaigning, because that's really what it is. Both of these gentlemen have made it pretty clear they're going to run again in the next election. So his Harper's patronage appointment here, which they deny is patronage, but anybody with some critical thinking skills, all you got to do is take a look at it and see what's going on. These two gentlemen are going to have 3 years of paid electioneering available to them through our taxpayers' dollars. And I guess the one thing that really upsets me the most with the Montreal appointment is Mr. Sajdal, and I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right or not, accepted that position on one of the holiest days of the Jewish faith, the Day of Atonement. You know, Where's the ethics of this gentleman? Anyway, that's just one more issue to add to should we care? I mean, yeah, we should care, because these are issues, these were important issues that this party ran on, and they're slowly dismantling our democracy. And my last Thanksgiving issue is this. They have Lisa Raitt now talking about revising the labor code as one step towards dealing with unions and strikes. I mean, this is going further than the private members bill that's requesting that will make it law for all unions to share their books with the public. But rather than have some Air Canada staff go on strike, Air Canada, you know, a few flight attendants, you know, talking about they've rejected what's been offered to them. Even before they've really said what they do. Lisa Raitt is already saying, well, we'll legislate them back to work. We can't afford that in this fragile economy. You know, we're getting a lot of messages on this fragile economy. Our economy's safe. Jim Flaherty last week was making a whole different, painting a whole different picture of our economy. He was cautiously optimistic. This is just smoke and mirrors, especially in light of what's just happened with Contemporary Security Canada. That's a company that the federal government contracted, $21 million contract, to help supply security for the G8, G20 summit that was held in Toronto. Turns out they weren't licensed in Ontario to practice that form of business. I have worked on the request for proposal process when I worked for the government in BC. How does an application, how does an RFP get through the screening process when they're missing one of the most basic aspects of tools required, which is a license? This is a $21 million contract. They were taken to court for it. They turned around and said they were guilty, and they received a $45,000 fine. I'm sorry, in a $21 million contract, $45,000 is a slap in the face. The bigger issue is, how does a company that isn't licensed to do a business beat out other companies to provide security for some of the most influential leaders in the world? You know, to me, that stinks of corruption. But again, happy Thanksgiving, courtesy of our government. So, I just want to finish off my little Thanksgiving Do We Care session here with what I find absolutely the most amazing. After all of these issues I've just mentioned, and they've all happened in the last 2 weeks, the biggest story in this country right now is the ignorant remarks made by Don Cherry on opening night of Hockey Night in Canada. You know, we've had almost 30 years of ignorant comments from Don Cherry. It's to be expected. And yet that's the one that's getting the most news. Well, here's what I have to say. If Canadians really cared and put even 25% of the energy they put into hockey into paying attention to Ottawa and our politicians, our country wouldn't be being dismantled the way it is. Right now, again, going back to Lisa Raitt and her threatening to change the labor code because it's outdated, well, you know, the biggest dinosaur out there is Don Cherry. And that's where we seem to be putting all of our attention right now on the news. So, should we care? I don't really care about Don Cherry and what he said. You know, he's entertainment. But I do care, and I think everybody should be caring, because this is what I keep hearing from people. It doesn't affect my life. I've just given you a list of things that affect your life, that affect our tax dollars, and that lay the playing field for the role models our kids are watching. Should we care? Yes. Do we care? When you look at it, less than 50% showing out to vote in Ontario last week, I don't think there's as much caring about our government out there as there should be, because so many people think, well, I can't do anything about it anyway, so why should I care? Well, people, if you want the Canada that we've gotten used to, you better start caring soon, because Harper is peeling it apart like a Japanese orange at Christmas. So that's my statement for today. Have a good day. I hope you all had a good turkey supper and enjoyed your Thanksgiving. I can think of a few families that didn't.